Rugby World Cup 2015 in England is just 2 years away, and as a member of the bid and delivery team, I'm both clearly proud and hugely excited. It's a wonderful opportunity to showcase rugby, England, and all the virtues we hold so dear in the game of rugby union in our wonderful sport to all those within England and around the world. But we don't just turn up on September the 8th, September the 18th in fact, on 2015 and cross our fingers and hope all goes well. So I'm delighted we now have a winning lineup to get beneath the skin of what it takes to win a bid for a major sporting occasion and then deliver an unforgettable event. This session is on winning bids and delivering outstanding rugby events. Best practice for event management.
In 2004, the IOC decides which of the cities that are applying to bid go from being an applicant city to a bidding city. And we were the ones that were fortunate enough to go through, but we didn't go through with particularly high scores. The IOC said that our venues were too far apart. It said that our transport plans were vague. It said we weren't necessarily articulating our vision well. And that was actually a really good wake-up call for us. And I remember going back from Lausanne, sitting in a room and discussing this, and Barbara Cassani was our then chair. And she was pragmatic, and she was the one that said we actually weren't going to win if she carried on being chair. We needed to have a top athlete leading our bid, and ideally a Brit as well. And that's when she stepped down and Seb stepped up from being vice chair to chair. It also was apparent that we weren't selling our vision, and you do need to have a strong narrative and get that message across when you're bidding. And our vision was to use the power of the games to inspire a generation and to engage young people into sport, and that simply wasn't happening. And we asked ourselves the perennial question: if you're in a lift with an IOC member and you have 1 minute, how are you going to persuade that member to vote for you? And we realized that we weren't articulating ourselves well enough. So we then, from that moment, started to really articulate our message, articulate our vision, and that formed a lot of our decision making. Behind that, we ensured that we had a really strong technical bid as well. It's important to have that narrative, it's important to have that vision, but you have to have the technical infrastructure to back that up, and also ensuring that you're delivering legacy as part of that planning. These are the key lessons that we took forward from that bid into delivery. And I've put the vision at the top because everything starts with that vision. You have to have your vision, you have to be brave, and you have to stick to it. You have to be able to articulate it very clearly. And everything is anchored into that vision. And it went back and formed our decision making the whole way through that delivery. It also is building a great team. At the end of the day, people do deliver this. You need to have those people. You need to have great people. We had a great team in 2012. We have an excellent team in 2015. And we are delivering it with those people, but in an integrated way. And then it's planning. Plan, 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 test, test, test. You cannot emphasize enough how much planning that you need and testing. We ran 42 separate test events for 2012. It was the biggest testing program that we did. And we're already planning with Kit and his team on the testing that we're going to have to ensure that on September 18th, we can hit the ground running. And then finally, engage the country. It's not easy we had 7 years with the Olympic and Paralympic Games to engage a nation. It's hard work, but you need to build that fan base, and then you need to keep that fan base going.
During the bid or tender phase, you have a unique opportunity of leverage, domestically in particular, to get the venues you need, get the government support you need, get the funding you need, get the buy-in of all the stakeholders that you are going to rely on later to support the delivery of a Rugby World Cup. So use that time wisely domestically, and that will help you put as strong a bid in as possible. But ultimately, the communication for me is the absolute critical thing in terms of having clarity, communicating that well, providing a framework for all of the decisions you take, and articulating it globally, within the media, within all of the stakeholders involved, but equally to the event owner itself.
What was the vision for 2019 Rugby World Cup Japan?
Yes, when it did a bid for Rugby World Cup 2019, we did it with a slogan, Tender for Asia. Asia is a region, as far as the population and the geographic areas are concerned, Asia is the biggest region in the world, so there's no reason we can't host Rugby World Cup. It's big challenge for everyone, I think. It's big challenge for IRB, big challenge for us, big challenge for teams coming to Japan, but if you don't challenge, you can't change anything. So we tender for Asia, and it's all at the same time, we tender for change.
For Ireland, I think there would be a very special benefit that would be different for other countries. First of all, it's probably the biggest thing that a country like Ireland could do. We'd be too small to do the Olympics or the FIFA World Cup. We're of a similar size to New Zealand, a little bit bigger in terms of population. It is probably the biggest event that could ever happen in Ireland. And for that reason, I think it would engender enormous national pride, and you'd really have the country behind it. You'd have that stadium of 6 million people behind it. And I think the second thing is that rugby in Ireland has always been a unifying force. The IRFU wasn't partitioned when the country split, and rugby has always been supported by people who are Catholics and people who are Protestants, which wasn't always the case with other sports.
I think clever bids not only know what they're about, that they know what their DNA is, what I might call their narrative, but also they are savvy and they understand what's in the interest of the decision makers. And if you get those two right, then you can have a bid that is successful, and then you see it through. And seeing it through is in the delivery, and that it also marks good bids, that they don't make false promises. They have the structures and the people in place to then deliver, and they don't disappoint the rights holder, because that's also important if you're going to bid for other things. So put those together and maybe Ireland will win. When you're dealing with world governing bodies who've got to have a global outlook on their sport, then you've got to accept a degree of geopolitics. And it's naive to say at the end of a bidding process, which I've seen certain bids do, including the last England World Cup bid, oh, we didn't know it's going to be geopolitical. Well, you're dealing with FIFA. Of course it's going to be geopolitical. And anybody that has a global outlook has to think about where they move their tournaments. They have to think about new markets. They have to think about a continental balance, not necessarily a rotation, but certainly being in a position to spread their event, their game, their sport around the world. So, geopolitics can play a role, and if it's working for you, it can be to your advantage. But it doesn't need to kill you either. I think if you're aware enough of it and understand the way these things can move in cycles, and you can also perhaps sell your message around new markets and growth and development, it's still possible to overcome geopolitics, but you always have to bear them in mind, yeah.
I'd just like to thank Debbie, Leo, Kit, Sho and Mike for your short but very informative input, and I'd please give them a round of applause.